Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the scanner screen. Small ship, the Iron Will, drifted slowly through the wreckage of what used to be Kepler Mining Station. Twisted metal and broken machinery floated past his window like ghosts in space. The station had been destroyed 3 weeks ago by pirates, and now Jake was here looking for anything worth salvaging. He was 32 years old and had been doing this job for 5 years. Before that, he had been a Marine, fighting in border wars between human colonies. But that life ended when pirates attacked his home planet and killed his wife and daughter. Now he traveled alone through space, taking whatever salvage work he could find. The scanner beeped, showing something large hidden behind a cluster of asteroids. Jake frowned and adjusted the controls. Whatever it was big. It's much bigger than anything that should be in this debris field. What the hell is that? He muttered to himself. Jake steered his ship toward the asteroids. As he got closer, he could make out the shape of a massive vessel wedged between 2 large rocks. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was sleek and black, with curved lines that looked almost organic. Strange symbols were carved into its hull, glowing faintly with a blue light. "Alien ship," Jake whispered. His heart started beating faster. Finding alien technology was like winning the lottery for a salvage operator. Even a small piece could make him rich enough to retire. But as he got closer, Jake noticed something that made his excitement fade. The ship was badly damaged. Large holes had been torn in its hull, and several sections were completely destroyed. Whoever had been fighting this ship had meant to kill everyone aboard. Jake checked his scanner again, for life signs were showing up inside the alien vessel, but they were very weak. Someone was still alive in there, but not for much longer. For a moment, Jake hesitated. The smart thing to do would be to wait for the aliens to die, then strip their ship for valuable technology. That was what any other salvage operator would do. Aliens were dangerous, and most species in the galaxy saw humans as inferior beings, not worth their time. But Jake could not bring himself to just wait and watch people die, even if they were aliens. He docked his ship to an airlock on the alien. Veselin put on his environment suit. The airlock was much larger than human standard, built for beings bigger than people. Jake had to stretch to reach the controls, but eventually managed to cycle through into the alien ship. The inside was dark and filled with smoke. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over everything. Jake pulled out his flashlight and started. Moving deeper into the ship, the corridors were wide and high, with walls covered in the same strange symbols he had seen outside. He followed his scanner toward the life signs. The ship was much larger inside than it looked from outside, with multiple levels and dozens of rooms. Most of them were damaged beyond repair. Jake stepped carefully around debris and broken machinery as he made his way toward the ship's center. Finally, he found them. Jake stopped in the doorway of what looked like a command bridge, for alien beings were there and they were unlike anything he had ever imagined. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with silver-scaled skin that seemed to shimmer in the emergency lighting. Their faces were angular and fierce, with golden eyes that glowed like tiny suns. 3 of the aliens were standing, holding weapons and watching Jake with obvious hostility. But the 4th was lying on the deck, badly injured. This one was older than the others, with intricate patterns carved into her scales. Blood, the color of liquid mercury, pooled around her body. The injured alien opened her eyes and looked directly at Jake when she spoke. Her voice was deep and melodic, but Jake could not understand the words. She seemed to be asking him something. One of the standing aliens, slightly smaller than the others, raised her weapon and pointed it at Jake. She said something sharp and threatening. Jake slowly raised his hands to show he was not armed. "I'm not here to hurt you," Jake said, knowing they probably could not understand him. "I want to help." The injured alien said something to the one pointing the weapon. After a moment, the weapon was lowered, but Jake could tell they were still ready to kill him if he'd made the wrong move. Jake knelt down beside the injured alien and examined her wounds. He had some medical training from his Marine days, and it was clear she was dying. She had lost too much blood, and several of her organs looked damaged. Without thinking about the danger, Jake went back to his ship and gathered every medical supply he had. When he returned, the three standing aliens watched him carefully as he began working on their wounded companion. Jake cleaned the wounds as best he could and applied pressure bandages to stop the bleeding. He gave her stimulants to help with the blood loss and antibiotics to prevent infection. It was not much, but it might buy her some time. While he worked, Jake noticed that the ship's life support was failing. The air was getting thin, and the temperature was dropping. If something was not done soon, they would all die. "Your ship is dying," Jake said, pointing to the failing systems around them. "I need to fix it." The injured alien seemed to understand. She spoke to the others in their musical language. After what sounded like an argument, they stepped aside and let Jake examine the life support controls. Jake had worked on dozens of different ship types over the years, and while this alien technology was advanced, the basic principles were the same. He managed to reroute power from non-essential systems and restart the main air recyclers. It was a temporary fix, but it would keep them alive for a while longer. When Jake finished, he found all four aliens watching him with expressions he could not read. The injured one spoke again. This time, Jake thought he heard something like gratitude in her voice. Over the next several hours, Jake went back and forth between the ships, bringing supplies and making repairs. Slowly, the alien ship systems came back online. The injured alien's condition improved, though she was still very weak. During this time, Jake learned that the three standing aliens were the wounded one's daughters. They communicated mostly through gestures and simple words, but Jake began to understand their situation. Their ship had been attacked by enemies, and they were the only survivors. The oldest daughter was tall and moved with careful precision. Everything about her suggested intelligence and planning. The middle daughter was broader and more muscular, with scars covering her arms and hands. She looked like a fighter. The youngest was smaller and quicker, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. As the wounded alien recovered enough to sit up, she began speaking to Jake in broken but understandable human language. It turned out she had encountered humans before and knew some of their words. "You save us," she said slowly. "Why? Humans fear us." Jake shrugged. "You needed help. That's enough reason for me." The alien stared at him for a long moment. Then she said something to her daughters in their own language. All three looked shocked. "I am Zarathal," the wounded alien said. "These are my daughters, Kira, Nova, Luna," where she pointed to each in turn. "I'm Jake Morrison," he replied. Zarathal nodded slowly. "Jake Morrison, you have honor. This is rare." Jake did not know what to say to that. He just wanted to help them get their ship running again so they could go wherever they needed to go. But as he looked at the four aliens, Jake had the feeling that his life was about to change in ways he could never imagine. 3 days passed before Zarathal was strong enough to leave her bed. During that time, Jake continued making repairs to their ship while learning more about the four aliens. He discovered that they were called Valkyrie, and they came from a warrior culture that valued honor above all else, Kira. The eldest daughter was 28 years old and had been trained as a military strategist. She spoke the best human language among the three sisters and often translated for the others. She watched Jake with careful eyes, studying his every move as if trying to solve a puzzle. Nova, middle daughter, was 25 and built like a fighter. Her arms were covered in ritual scars that marked her victories in combat. She trusted Jake the least and always kept her hand near her weapon when he was around. But Jake noticed she also watched him with curiosity, especially when he worked on the ship's machinery. Luna, the youngest at 22, was the quietest of the three. She moved like a shadow and seemed to appear and disappear without making a sound. Jake often found her watching him from hidden corners, but she would vanish the moment he looked directly at her. As Zarathal recovered, she began asking Jake questions about his life. Through their broken conversations, she learned about his past as a Marine, his lost family, and his current life as a salvage operator. Jake found himself talking more than he had in years. Something about the alien matriarch, making him feel comfortable sharing his story. "Your family," Zarathal said one day, as they sat in the ship's main room. Pirates killed them? Jake nodded, feeling the familiar pain in his chest. 5 years ago. My wife Sarah and my daughter Emma, they were visiting her parents on Harmony Colony when the raiders hit. Zarothel's golden eyes showed understanding. I know this pain. My husband Terval and my sons died defending our world. The hegemony came like a storm, destroying everything. The hegemony, Jake asked. An empire that conquers worlds, Kira explained from across the room. They do not just take territory, they break the spirit of those they defeat. They destroyed our homeworld 2 months ago. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How many worlds have they taken? Dozens, Zarothel said sadly. They grow stronger with each victory. Soon they will turn their attention to human space. Why are you telling me this? Jake asked. Zarathal was quiet for a long moment. Because you showed us kindness when you had no reason to. Because you risked your life for strangers. This tells me something about your character. Over the following days, Jake learned more about Valkyrie culture. They were a proud people who lived by strict codes of honor. Warriors were expected to die before showing cowardice, and family bonds were considered sacred. The relationship between parents and children was especially important in their society. In our culture, Kira explained, daughters belong to their parents until they marry or their parents die. We are sworn to protect and serve our mother until she releases us from this duty. But your ship is destroyed, Jake pointed out. Will you do now? The 3 sisters exchanged glances. It was Nova who answered. We will find a way to rebuild, or we will die trying. There is no other choice for a Valkyrie warrior. Jake could see the determination in their eyes, but he also saw something else. Fear. Not of death, but of failure. They were for survivors. Of a dead world with no resources and no allies, their chances of survival were slim. That night, Jake was awakened by voices coming from the main room. He got up quietly and looked around the corner. Zarutho was sitting with her daughters, speaking in their native language. The conversation sounded serious, almost formal. Jake was about to go back to bed when he heard his name mentioned. 4 aliens looked in his direction, and Zarathal gestured for him to join them. We were discussing our future, she said when Jake sat down. Our ship cannot be fully repaired. We have no home to return to. In human terms, we are refugees. I'm sorry, Jake said. I know how that feels, do you? Zarathal asked. When you lost your family, did you have a choice in how to continue living? Jake thought about it. I guess I did. I could have stayed on Earth, found a regular job, tried to start over, but I chose to leave, to keep moving. That is the difference between us, Zarathal said. You had choices, we do not. Valkyrie warriors without a clan or a purpose are nothing. We are already dead. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Jake looked at the 3 daughters and saw the same resigned acceptance in their faces. They were giving up. That's not true, Jake said firmly. You're not dead. You're sitting here talking to me. You have skills, knowledge, strength. You just need a new purpose. Zarathal smiled sadly. You speak like a true warrior, Jake Morrison. But you do not understand our ways. Then explain them. To me, Zarathal studied his face for a long moment. There is an ancient ritual called Valthera. It allows a dying parent to transfer guardianship of their children to another warrior. It has not been performed with an outsider in over 1,000 years. Why not? Jake asked. 'Cause it creates a bond deeper than marriage, Kira said. The guardian becomes responsible for the honor and welfare of the children. They become family in the truest sense. And if the guardian fails in their duty, Jake asked, then all involved are dishonored, Nova said. It is a sacred trust that cannot be broken. Jake felt his heart beating faster. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Zarathel nodded slowly. I am dying, Jake Morrison. My injuries are too severe. I will not live to see another month. But my daughters could live if they had someone to guide them, to give them purpose. I don't know anything about being a parent to alien warriors, Jake protested. You know about honor, Zarathal said. You know about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. These are the qualities that matter. looked at the three daughters. "What do you think about this?" Kira spoke first. "You saved our mother's life. You have shown us kindness. But kindness is not enough. Can you lead us in battle? Can you make the hard choices that will keep us alive?" "I don't know," Jake said honestly, "but I can try." Nova was less diplomatic. "You are small and weak compared to us. How can you command our respect?" "Respect isn't about size or strength," Jake replied. "It's about actions. Judge me by what I do, not what I look like." Luna had been silent throughout the conversation, but now she spoke. "You carry sadness like a warrior carries scars. You understand loss. This is important." Zarathal nodded approvingly. "My daughters must each choose for themselves. The bond cannot be forced." "What would this bond mean exactly?" Jake asked. "You would become their father in all but blood," Zarathal explained. "Their honor would be your honor. Their enemies would be your enemies. Their victories would be your victories. And when I die, you would speak for them in all matters." Jake felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. 3 alien warriors, each deadly in their own way, looking to him for leadership and guidance. It was terrifying and overwhelming, but as he looked at their faces, he saw something that decided him: hope. For the first time since he had met them, they had hope. "If they're willing to trust me," Jake said, "then I'm willing to try." Zarathal smiled, and for the first time it reached her golden eyes. "Then let us begin the ritual. But tonight, under the stars, we will forge a bond that will change all of our lives forever." The bonding ceremony took place that same night in the cargo bay of Jake's ship. Zarathal had insisted they perform the ritual properly, even though they lacked many of the traditional items. She used a ceremonial blade to cut ancient symbols into the metal floor while chanting in the old Volcari language. Jake stood in the center of a circle with the 3 daughters around him. Each sister had to formally accept the bond by speaking an oath and offering him a weapon from their personal collection. Kira gave him a plasma pistol, Nova offered a combat knife, and Luna presented a small but deadly dart gun. "We guide off to beyond all with one." "You accept the duty to protect us," Zarathal explained. "And we accept the duty to follow your leadership." When the ceremony ended, Jake felt different. Not physically, but something had changed in how the 3 sisters looked at him. The hostility was gone, replaced by something that felt like family loyalty. The next morning, Zarathal was weaker. The effort of the ceremony had drained much of her remaining strength, leaving most of her time sleeping, leaving Jake alone. With his new responsibilities, living with 3 alien warriors was not easy. Kira constantly questioned Jake's decisions, not out of disrespect, but because strategic thinking was her nature. She wanted to understand his reasoning for everything. "Why do you eat so much processed food?" she asked one morning, as Jake heated up a meal pack. "Fresh food is better for maintaining combat readiness, because fresh food spoils in space," Jake explained. "And I'm usually alone for weeks at a time." "That is inefficient," Kira said. "A proper warrior should always be prepared for extended missions." Nova had different concerns. She was frustrated by human weapons and equipment. Everything was built for beings much smaller than Valkyrie warriors. "Your weapons are toys," she complained after trying to use Jake's rifle. "How do humans fight wars with such weak tools?" "We use our brains more than our muscles," Jake replied. "We build better strategies instead of relying on strength alone." This comment led to an argument that lasted for hours. Nova believed that personal combat skill was the most important quality in a warrior. Jake tried to explain that humans won battles through teamwork and clever tactics. Luna was the quietest of the 3, but she caused the most problems. She had a habit of disappearing for hours at a time, exploring every corner of Jake's ship. He would find her in storage compartments, ventilation shafts, and other places that should have been impossible to reach. "You need better security," she told him, after appearing suddenly in his quarters. "I could have killed you 6 times today, without you noticing." "This isn't a warship," Jake said, trying to calm his racing heart. "It's a salvage vessel. I don't expect to be attacked by my own crew." "You should always expect attack," Luna said seriously. "Enemies come from unexpected directions." Despite these challenges, Jake began to appreciate the sisters' unique abilities. Kira could analyze complex tactical situations in seconds and spot weaknesses that Jake would never have noticed. Nova could repair machinery with her bare hands and had an intuitive understanding of how weapons worked. Luna could move through the ship like a ghost and notice details that others missed. Their first real test came 2 weeks after the bonding ceremony. Jake had taken them to Bennett Station, a neutral trading post where he often sold salvaged goods. He needed supplies and fuel, and he hoped to find medical equipment that might help Zara single quotes. The station was crowded with traders, miners, and spacers from dozens of different species. Jake noticed that many people stared at his companions. Valkyrie were known throughout the galaxy as fearsome warriors, and seeing 3 of them following a human was unusual. Jake was negotiating with a parts dealer when trouble started. A group of Corvin mercenaries recognized the sisters and began making threatening comments. Corvins were large, aggressive aliens who worked as hired guns for various criminal organizations. "Look at the proud Valkyrie," one of them said loudly. Following a weak human like trained pets, Jake felt the sisters tense beside him. In Valkyrie culture, such insults demanded a response, but they were outnumbered and in a public place where fighting was forbidden. "Ignore them," Jake said quietly. "We don't want trouble." The Corvins were not finished. Their leader, a massive alien with scarred hide and cybernetic implants, stepped closer. "I heard about what happened to your world," he said with a cruel smile. "Maybe we should finish what the hegemony started." That was too much for Nova. She started to reach for her weapon, but Jake caught her arm. "No," he said firmly. "Not here." The Corvin leader laughed. "Smart human. You know your pets cannot protect you." Jake looked around the trading floor. Other people were watching now, waiting to see what would happen. Some looked eager for violence, while others seemed nervous about being caught in a fight. "You're right," Jake said suddenly. "I can't depend on them to protect me." The sisters looked shocked. Even Kira seemed confused by his words. Jake stepped forward, putting himself between the Corvins and his companions. "But they don't need to protect me from bullies like you." Kvan leader's smile faded. "What did you say, human?" "I said you're a bully," Jake replied calmly. "You pick fights with people who are trying to mind their own business. That makes you a coward in my book." The crowd around them grew larger. Someone called for station security, but Jake knew they would not arrive in time. The Corvin leader pulled out a large knife. "I will enjoy cutting you apart, human." Jake did not back down. "But you'll have to catch me first." What happened next surprised everyone, including Jake's companions. Instead of fighting the Corvin directly, Jake used the crowded trading floor to his advantage. He ducked under tables, used other people as cover, and made the larger alien chase him around obstacles. The Corvin was stronger and better armed, but Jake was faster and smarter. He led his opponent into a section of the station where low-hanging cables and support beams made it hard for the tall alien to move freely. When the Corvin finally cornered him, Jake was ready. He had picked up a heavy tool from a nearby repair station and used it to strike the alien's weapon arm. The knife went flying, and Jake followed up with a kick that sent the Corvin crashing into a support beam. The other Corvins started to move forward, but they stopped when they found 3 Valkyrie warriors blocking their path. The sisters had positioned themselves strategically while Jake fought their leader. "Your leader challenged mine to single combat," Kira said coldly. "Honor demands that you accept the result." The Corvins looked at their unconscious leader, then at the 3 deadly warriors facing them. After a moment, they picked up their companion and left without another word. Station security arrived a few minutes later, but the fight was already over. Jake explained what had happened, and several witnesses supported his story. The security chief, a tired-looking human woman, just told them to avoid causing more trouble. As they walked back to their ship, the sisters were unusually quiet. Finally, Kira spoke. "You fought with intelligence instead of strength," she said. "This is not what we expected. Most problems can be solved without killing people," Jake replied. "Though sometimes you have to be ready to fight if talking doesn't work." Nova looked thoughtful. "You used the environment as a weapon. This is a tactic we did not learn." "Different situations require different approaches," Jake said. "What makes humans dangerous? We adapt." Luna had been silent, but now she smiled. "You've protected our honor without asking us to fight. This shows wisdom." When they returned to their ship, they found Zarathal waiting for them. She was very weak now, barely able to sit up, but her golden eyes were bright with curiosity. "I heard there was excitement on the station," she said. "Jake fought for our honor," Kira reported. "He showed courage and cleverness." Zarathal smiled. "Good. You are learning to work together. This will be important for what comes next." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Zarathal's expression grew serious. "I received a message while you were gone. The hegemony knows we survived. They are coming." Jake felt his blood turn cold at Zarathal's words. "How did they find us?" "The hegemony has spies everywhere," the dying matriarch explained weakly. "Someone at the trading station must have reported seeing us. Admiral Vextar himself is coming, with a full battle group." "Who is Vextar?" Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer would be bad news. "The one who destroyed our homeworld," Nova said, her voice filled with rage. "He killed our father and brothers. He takes pleasure in breaking strong enemies," Kira added. "He will not simply kill us. He will make us suffer first." Jake looked around at the three sisters. "How long do we have?" "Perhaps 2 days," Zarathal said. "Maybe less." "Then we need to run," Jake said. "My ship is fast. We can get to human space before they catch us." "No," Zarathal said firmly. "Running will not save us. Svextar will follow us anywhere. He will use us to hurt others." "What do you mean?" "He will attack human colonies to draw us out," Kira explained. "He has done this before with other survivors. He forces them to surrender by threatening innocent people." Jake felt sick. The idea of entire colonies being destroyed because of him was unbearable. "So what do we do?" "Fight," Nova said simply. "We make our last stand here and take as many of them with us as we can." "For people against a battle group?" Jake shook his head. "That's not fighting, that's suicide." "It is the Valkyrie way," Luna said quietly. Jake looked at each of them in turn. They were ready to die. He could see it in their eyes. But he was not ready to let them die, especially not for nothing. "No," he said finally. "There has to be another way." "You have an idea?" Kira asked. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking hard. "Maybe Zarathal. How well do you know Vextar? What kind of commander is he?" "Careful, methodical. He does not take unnecessary risks," she replied. "What about his ship? His defenses?" "Why do you ask these questions?" Nova demanded. "Because I'm thinking about attacking him instead of running away." The three sisters stared at Jake as if he had lost his mind. Even Zarathal looked shocked. "Attack a hegemony battle group?" Kira said slowly. "With one small ship?" "Not the whole battle group," Jake said. "Just Vextar's command ship. If we can capture or kill him, the others might retreat." "This is madness," Nova said. "His ship has shields, weapons, hundreds of crew members. We would be destroyed before we got close." "Not if we do it right," Jake said. "Not if we think like humans instead of like Valkyrie." He went to his computer and pulled up charts of the local area. Where would Vextar position his ships? Kira studied the display. "Here, most likely. It gives him the best sensor coverage and multiple escape routes. And he'll keep his command ship in the center of the formation, protected by the others." "Yes, that is standard hegemony doctrine." Jake nodded. "Good. That's what I was hoping you'd say." Spent the next several hours explaining his plan. The sisters listened with growing amazement and horror. What Jake was suggesting went against everything they had been taught about warfare.
You want
Us to surrender? Nova said incredulously. Not really surrender, Jake explained. Pretend to surrender. Get them to bring us aboard Vextar's ship as prisoners, and then we escape and take over the ship from the inside. This plan has too many risks, Kira said. If we are discovered, we will be tortured and killed. If we don't try, we'll be dead anyway, Jake pointed out. At least this gives us a chance. Luna had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke. It could work. They will not expect prisoners to fight back, especially if we appear defeated. The key is making it believable, Jake said. Zarathol will have to stay here. They'll think she's too weak to be a threat. The rest of us will be taken prisoner. And how do we get weapons once we're aboard their ship? Nova asked. Jake smiled. Grimly, we improvise. Humans are good at that. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Jake programmed his ship's computer to send out a fake distress signal that would make it look like they were stranded and helpless. The sisters practiced acting defeated, which was harder for them than any combat training. Zarathel gave them detailed information about hegemony, ship layouts, and security procedures. She also performed a final ritual, blessing each of her daughters. For what might be their last battle, if you succeed, she told Jake privately, you will have avenged not just my family, but thousands of others. Vextar has brought death to many worlds, and if we fail, then you will die as warriors. There is honor in that. The hegemony ships arrived exactly when Zarathol had predicted. Jake watched on his sensors as 5 massive vessels dropped out of hyperspace and took positions around the asteroid field. The command ship was 3 times larger than the others. Bristling with weapons and defensive systems, Jake activated the distress signal and waited. It did not take long for the hegemony to respond. A squadron of smaller ships surrounded Jake's vessel, while the command ship moved closer. Unknown vessel, you will prepare to be boarded, came a harsh voice over the radio. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction.
Ow!
Jake looked at the 3 sisters. They had hidden their best weapons and tried to look as harmless as possible. It was not easy for 3 deadly warriors to appear helpless, but they were doing their best. Jake said quietly, we're beaten and scared. Out. Don't fight back until I give the signal. The boarding party that came aboard was led by a hegemony officer who looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that missed nothing. Behind him came a dozen heavily armed soldiers. Where are the Valkyrie? The officer demanded. Jake pointed to where the sisters sat with their heads down, looking defeated. They surrendered when they saw your ships. The officer studied them carefully. These are the survivors that Admiral Vextar seeks. They will be valuable prizes. Jake and the sisters were fitted with restraints and taken aboard the command ship.
us?
They were led through the corridors. Jake memorized everything he saw: guard positions, weapon storage, key systems. All information that might be useful later. They were brought to a holding cell deep in the ship's interior. The cell was designed to hold dangerous prisoners, with force fields and multiple layers of security. But Jake had expected this. We wait, he whispered to the sisters after the guards left. Wait for what? Nova asked. For them to get overconfident, for the guards to relax. For our chance? Hours passed. Guards came to take them one by one for questioning. Each time they returned with reports of what they had seen. Slowly, they built up a picture of the ship's layout and defenses. Luna was the first to be questioned. When she returned, she had news. I saw the bridge. Vextar is there, planning his next attack. He spoke of hitting a human colony to make an example. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Which colony? New Haven? He said it would be easy to destroy. Jake knew New Haven. It was a farming world with almost no defenses. 50,000 people lived there, including many families with children. Settles it, he said grimly. We're not just escaping, we're stopping him. How? Kira asked. Jake pulled a small device from his boot. The guards had missed it during their search. With this, it's a computer virus designed to crash ship systems. I've been carrying it for emergencies. You can disable their ship? Nova asked excitedly. Some of it, enough to cause confusion. We'll still have to fight our way to the bridge. Luna smiled for the first time since they had been captured. Now you sound like a true warrior. Jake looked at each of them. You ready? We have been ready since the day our world died, Kira said. Jake activated the virus and plugged it into the cell's control panel. Almost immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The alarms echoed through the hegemony ship as Jake's virus spread through their computer systems. Emergency lights flashed red in the corridors, and confused voices could be heard over the intercom system. The force field is down, Kira said. Stepping out of the cell, Jake followed her, with Nova and Luna close behind. They moved quickly down the corridor, staying low and quiet. The virus had caused chaos, but it would not last long. Hegemony engineers would find a way to stop it soon. Which way to the bridge? Jake whispered. Luna pointed down a side passage, through the main corridor, then up 3 levels. But there will be many guards. They reached the main corridor and found it filled with running soldiers. The hegemony crew was trying to reach emergency stations and restore their systems. In the confusion, 4 escaped prisoners were easy to overlook. Nova grabbed a weapon from the first guard they encountered. The alien soldier was so focused on the alarms that he never saw her coming. Within minutes, all 4 of them were armed with hegemony weapons. These are much better than human guns, Nova said approvingly, testing the weight of an energy rifle. Save the reviews for later, Jake said. We need to keep moving. They fought their way through the ship level by level. The sisters moved like a perfectly coordinated team, each one covering the others. Kira called out tactical information. Nova handled the heavy fighting, and Luna struck from unexpected angles. Jake found himself struggling to keep up with their deadly efficiency, but the hegemony soldiers were not helpless. They began organizing a proper defense, setting up barriers and coordinated attacks. The element of surprise was wearing off. We need a different approach, Jake said, as they took cover behind an overturned table. Energy blasts sizzled past their heads. There are too many of them, Kira agreed. We cannot fight through all of them. Jake looked around desperately. We're pinned down in a corridor with enemies in front and behind. The virus had stopped working, and ship systems were coming back online. Soon the hegemony would restore full power, and then they would be trapped. That was when Jake remembered something. He still had his emergency communicator, a device designed to send distress signals across long distances. It was a desperate idea, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Cover me, he told the sisters, pulling out the communicator. Jake activated the emergency beacon and began broadcasting on all human frequencies. His message was simple but urgent. This is Jake Morrison aboard the Hegemony command ship. We have captured Admiral Vextar's vessel, but need immediate assistance. Coordinates are being transmitted with this signal. The Hegemony is planning to attack New Haven Colony. Please respond. Please help. He sent the message on repeat, while the sisters held off the advancing guards. Jake knew it was probably hopeless. They were too far from human space for anyone to reach them in time, but 30 minutes later, something impossible happened. The first ship to arrive was a human destroyer called the Valiant, commanded by Captain Lisa Hayes. She dropped out of hyperspace right in the middle of the Hegemony formation and immediately opened fire. "This is Captain Hayes to Jake Morrison," came a voice over the communicator. "We received your signal. Cavalry has arrived." More ships began appearing. Just military vessels, but converted civilian craft, mining ships with improvised weapons, and even some pirate vessels. Jake could not believe what he was seeing.
How many ships are out there? Nova asked,
staring out a window at the growing human fleet. Jake checked his communicator. 43 and counting. I don't understand how they got here so fast. The
answer came from Captain Hayes. "We're already in the area, investigating hegemony movements." When your signal came through, every human captain within range answered the call. Nobody threatens our people and gets away with it. The battle outside was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The human ships moved in chaotic patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully coordinated. They used tactics that no military academy would teach, improvising solutions to every problem. A converted mining vessel rammed a hegemony cruiser, both ships exploding in a ball of fire. A group of small fighters swarmed another enemy ship like angry insects, hitting it from every direction until its shields collapsed. Inside the command ship, the hegemony forces were in chaos. Soldiers were being called away to defend against the human attack, leaving fewer to guard against Jake and the sisters. "Now is our chance," Kira said. "The path to the bridge is clear." They fought their way up through the remaining levels, encountering only scattered resistance. The virus had done more damage than Jake had expected, and many ship systems were still malfunctioning. When they reached the bridge, they found Admiral Vexstar himself waiting for them. He was a massive alien with dark scales and cold eyes. Several of his officers stood beside him, weapons drawn. "So the famous Valkyrie survivors finally reveal themselves," Vexstar said in accented human language. "And they bring a pet human with them." "We are not your prisoners anymore," Nova said, raising her weapon. Vexstar laughed. "You think you have one?" "My ship is still intact. Human friends cannot save you from what happens next." "Maybe not," Jake said, "but they can make sure New Haven stays safe." "New Haven will burn," Vexter snarled, "along with every other human world. We will hunt down your species like the vermin you are." "You're welcome to try," Jake replied. "But I don't think you'll get the chance." The fight on the bridge was brief but violent. The sisters attacked with all the skill and fury they had learned over their lifetimes. Vexstar was a formidable opponent, but he was one alien against 3 trained warriors. Luna struck first, her blade finding a gap in his armor. Kira followed with a perfectly placed shot that disabled his weapon. Nova finished him with a blow that sent him crashing into the main view screen. With their admiral dead, the remaining hegemony officers surrendered quickly. The sisters secured the bridge while Jake contacted Captain Hayes. "This is Jake Morrison. You have control of the command ship. Admiral Vexstar is dead." "Copy that, Jake. Good work." "The remaining hegemony ships are retreating. Looks like they lost their appetite for fighting when their leader went down." Jake looked around the bridge at the 3 sisters. They stood together. Weapons still ready? Their faces showed something he had not seen before. Peace. They had avenged their family and their world. "What happens now?" Luna asked. "Now we go home," Jake said. "Where is home for us?" Kira wondered. Jake smiled. "Wherever we decide to make it." In the weeks that followed, news of the battle spread throughout human space. The story of one man and 3 alien warriors defeating an entire hegemony battle group became legendary. Jake found himself offered positions with military organizations, mining companies, and exploration services, but he turned them all down. He had a different plan. Using money from salvaging the hegemony ships, Jake bought a small planet on the edge of human space. It was a world with good soil, clean water, and plenty of room to grow. He named it New Valkyr, in honor of the sisters' destroyed homeworld. Other refugees began arriving, survivors from worlds the hegemony had destroyed, humans looking for a fresh start, and various aliens seeking a place where different species could live together in peace. The 3 sisters became the planet's protectors and teachers. They trained a new generation of warriors who learned both human tactics and Valkyrie honor. Kira established a military academy. Nova opened a combat training center, and Luna created a scout service that kept watch for threats. Jake became the planet's governor, though he preferred to think of himself as just another colonist. He married a human doctor named Beth Carter, who had come to help establish the colony's medical facilities. They had 2 children who grew up speaking both human languages and Valkyr years later. When other hegemony forces threatened human space, they found themselves facing an enemy they had not expected. Human ships crewed by mixed species teams, using tactics that combined the best of many worlds. Leading them were 3 Valkyrie sisters and their human father, showing the galaxy that family was not about blood, but about the bonds forged in shared struggle. The hegemony learned what Jake had always known. When humans adopted someone into their family, they would fight to the death to protect them. And when alien warriors learned to think like humans, they became more dangerous than anyone could imagine. Zarathal had lived to see the victory over Vexstar. Dying peacefully in her sleep a few days after the battle, Her last words were a blessing. For the family she had created, predicting that their bond would make both species stronger, she had been right. In saving one alien mother, Jake had helped birth a new kind of family that would change the galaxy forever.